Greetings again, big banders. Alan Dell here with the goodies for this hour, continuing, in fact, from last week with a few more of the bands we haven't featured too often in recent times. And may I really pick up from the end of last week's programme with the complete version of the play-out tune. Here's Mr. Richard Maltby's version of Mr. Mancini's Mr. Lucky. Richard Maltby Orchestra and Mr. Lucky. Title tune of the American TV series and this long past recorded album of the music from that series. Now, the orchestra of Buddy Morrow, who as Mo Zudikoff, which was his real name, is to be found among the personnel listings of the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, also Paul Whiteman, Artie Shaw, Vincent Lopez, Bob Crosby, and under either name in many a fine session band for recordings. A trombonist of the highest caliber, Buddy Morrow was launched, like Ralph Flanagan, in the early 1950s by RCA through heavy record promotion. Also, Frank Daly of Meadowbrook Club fame attempted to lift the dwindling big band business through a television outside broadcast featuring Morrow among others. But unfortunately, it didn't work as well as it had done on radio a decade or more earlier. In the 1970s, Buddy Morrow took over leadership of the still working Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, and his trombone supremacy was an obvious asset, much as it is on this record, with his own band. Buddy Morrow and his orchestra playing with the song In My Rodgers and Heart. Apart from directing the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, Buddy Morrow was also invited to lead the on-the-road Glenn Miller Orchestra, which he did for a short spell. And I guess during that time he was asked to perform the famous St. Louis Blues March, which is not that far from this military mood that he recorded with his own band, called Midnight March. I think you will find echoes of Mr. Morrow's famous Night Train in it. Midnight March with some fine playing from the Buddy Morrow Orchestra. Here now is the music of a man of whom I have been asked many times from people who would like to know, is there an appreciation society to him? Not that I know of, but there are indeed a host of appreciators of the compositions of Raymond Scott, his Toy Trumpet, for instance, or Twilight in Turkey, or Dinner Music for a Pack of Hungry Cannibals, or this piece, Huckleberry Duck. Scott's Huckleberry Duck. Connoisseurs will have realized immediately that that was not the original small group that Raymond Scott led on record in the latter 30s, which established his name. That was a much larger band that he was leading after the war. Scott is considered by some as one of the eccentrics of popular music. His insistence on utter perfection with his musicians led to some difficulties. But whatever, he did achieve some memorable results with that sextet of his. And at that time, he was a member of the staff of CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System, where his elder brother, Mark Warno, Raymond Scott's real name is Harry Warno, was an executive. And I'm sure you remember that for many years he was the conductor on the Lucky Strike hit parade. Raymond Scott, in 1939, formed a big band which had some success, but not a lot on the road. And he tried again in the mid-40s with an orchestra modelled on the Glenn Miller style. Well, he was Ray's idol. Part of an arrangement of It Could Happen to You. The full version is taken from a live broadcast by the Raymond Scott Orchestra from the Palace Hotel, San Francisco in 1947, and is to be found on a new Swing House LP, which also features the singer that Raymond Scott discovered, Dorothy Collins, who became his wife and who sang on the Lucky Strike hit parades when Raymond Scott took over conducting it after his brother's death in 1949. If you'd like to hear Miss Collins, here she is on the bandstand at the Palace Hotel in 1947 with Tallahassee.
Oh, won't you listen, all you people on the southbound train? Oh, won't you listen to my friendly advice? About 7:15, we'll be pulling into paradise. When you see land kinda green and grassy beneath the moon, bright beyond compare. When you see blue jays chirping high and sassy, and get one sniff of southern cooking hanging on the evening air. When you see folks all polite and classy, and every smile bids you stay and rest, get off that train, you're in Tallahassee, the Southland at its best. as you stay and rest. Get off that train, you're in Tallahassee. The Southland at its
Dorothy Collins with the Raymond Scott Orchestra. There are a few later recordings from 1946 on this LP. We'll save those perhaps for another time. I only wish that the album also had a few more of Raymond Scott's eccentric pieces like War Dance of the Wooden Indians, even in an 18th century drawing room borrowed from Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, or even his futuristic composition, a dedicatory piece to the crew and passengers of the first experimental rocket to the moon, written, incidentally, in the mid-40s. However, probably they weren't available to the compiler. Enjoy what is here, and I think you will. One of the seldom-heard bands, the Raymond Scott Orchestra of the 1940s, on Swinghouse SWH 31. Swinghouse SWH 31. Less eccentric, but equally, if not more attractive, the next tune from Hal McIntyre and his orchestra. I'm returning to the last batch of Hindsight records, this one in particular, because it only had a brief airing in an earlier program, and I did say I'd love to come back to it. Hal McIntyre here in 1943 with a tune called Apple Shiner that he composed with his pianist-arranger of that time, Danny Hurd. It owes something, I would say, to Gershwin's Swonderful, and features neat solos by Ted Goddard on tenor, Danny Britton on trumpet, Jimmy Emmett on plunger trombone, Hal McIntyre himself, marvelous alto fluid it is. Danny Hurd is on piano, with some fine bass work by Eddie Safransky. original for the Hal McIntyre Orchestra on one of the more recent Hindsight albums. HSR 172 is the number of that one, HSR 172. Let's follow the bass man of that record, Eddie Safransky, on to his later job with Stan Kenton for one of my favorites from the 1940s that featured Kenton's vocal team, the Pastels. Here's Down in Chihuahua.
Down in Chihuahua, there ain't nothing much to do. Chihuahua, down in Chihuahua, there ain't nothing much to do. Down in Chihuahua, there ain't nothing much to do. Chihuahua, down in Chihuahua, there ain't nothing much to do. In Chihuahua. Chihuahua, there ain't nothing much to do. Chihuahua, down in Chihuahua, there ain't nothing much to do. In Chihuahua.
From 1947, Stan Kenton and the orchestra, the Pastels, and Eddie Safransky getting a name check down in Chihuahua. I understand two Kenton associates have recently died. One was Gene Rowland, a multi-instrumentalist, composer and arranger. He first joined Kenton in 1944 on trumpet, doubling valve trombone. But you will, I'm sure, recall the 1961 recordings in which Gene Rowland played soprano, sax, and mellophonium, guesting for the collection called Adventures in Blues, all his own compositions and arrangements, including the well-known Rubens Blues, once the signature tune of album time. There are other nice things on the LP, including Aphrodisia. Marvin Stamm's muted trumpet is one soloist, but the mellow mellophonium is all Gene Rowland. Aphrodisia, composed, arranged, and soloed on mellophonium by the late Gene Rowland. The other Kenton associate, now gone, is vocalist Ann Richards, who, I'm informed, committed suicide some weeks ago. She was of the June Christie, Chris Connor's Cool School, and was with Kenton in the mid-1950s, and then went on to record as a solo singer, as here.
Poor little rich girl, you're a bewitched girl, better beware. Life been a danger, virtue a stranger, better take care. The life you lead sets all your nerves a-jangle. Your love affairs are in a hopeless tangle. Though you're a child, dear, your life's a wild typhoon. In lives of leisure, the craze for pleasure steadily grows. Cocktails and laughter, but what comes after, nobody knows. You're weaving love into a mad jazz pattern, ruled by pantaloons. Poor little rich girl, don't drop a stitch too soon. Pleasure steadily grows. Cocktails and laughter, but what comes after? You're weaving love into a mad jazz pattern, ruled by pantaloons. Poor little rich girl, you're a bewitched girl, don't drop a stitch too soon.
The late Ann Richards, and I doubt that Noel Coward ever had his poor little rich girl so brassily treated before. Sadly, too, someone else lost to us recently was the great Murray McKechnie, one of the real greats of the big band business, a Canadian and another multi-instrumentalist. He was a virtuoso on both trombone and alto sax, and no mean performer on trumpet, clarinet, and violin. In earlier days, he'd worked with Paul Whiteman and Benny Goodman, but his happiest home, perhaps, was with the Casaloma Orchestra. In fact, when Glenn Gray came out of retirement in the mid-50s to start the whole new Casaloma revival, recreating their own past successes as well as those of many other big bands, which started, of course, the swing era things on Time Life. There was Murray McKechnie already in the studios. He was on call as one of the most important of session men. I'd like to go back to that first Casaloma revival album to feature Murray McKechnie leading the trombone section and playing an absolutely marvelous solo in Sleepytime Gal. the revived Glenn Gray Carzaloma Orchestra of the 1950s with the late Murray McKechnie on trombone in Sleepytime Gal. They don't come any better than that. Just before we go back to a few more not featured recently things, may I bring to your notice, if you haven't already come across it, a double album of small group classics. The Benny Goodman Trio and Quartet numbers from 1937 and 38. Mind you, I guess they count as not featured recently. When last we had a trio or a quartet thing, I can't imagine. I haven't checked the dates on all these items, only the one that I'm going to play. There's no information on the album at all. Anyway, this is the quartet, Goodman, Teddy Wilson, Gene Krupa, and Lionel Hampton, in a Goodman original titled Killadilla, and it comes from a Camel Caravan broadcast of December the 7th, 1937. Four men generating so much swing, it's almost indecent. The Benny Goodman Quartet in December 1937 on the Camel Caravan broadcast from New York with Killadilla, just one gem from a CBS double album of Goodman Trio and Quartet numbers of the period. CBS 88141 is the number. It's an import from France, and from what I've heard, an excellent pressing. CBS 88141. Among the hindsights I'd like to air again, there's one by the King Sisters, accompanied on this occasion by the fine Frank de Vol Orchestra. It's so long ago since I played anything from this LP, I've forgotten what it was. It could even have been this track, which I think is very good indeed, When My Dreamboat Comes Home.
I got a guy who's the sweetest can be. It makes me happy when he comes home to me. I call him dreamboat and all that jive, and I'm living for the moment. comes home, then my dreams no more will roam. I will meet you and I will greet you, hold you closely, my own. Moonlit waters will sing of the tender love you bring. We'll be sweethearts forever when my dreamboat comes home. When dreamboat starts to come on home, you can really, really, really be sure that my dreams no more will roam. Here and there, everywhere, I will meet you and greet you, hold you closely, my own. Moonlit waters will sing all the tender love you bring. We'll be sweethearts forever. Toot toot when my dreamboat, I got a guy who's as sweet as can be. It makes me happy when he comes home to me. I call him Dreamboat, all that jive, and I'm living for the moment when he comes home.
One of the outstanding vocal teams of all time, the King Sisters, four ladies with ears for the closest of harmonies, and how nice to have an album of good things from them on one of the Hindsight set. The Kings in 1947 with Frank DeVol, and HSR 168 is the number of that record, Hindsight HSR 168. On Hindsight HSR 173 is, another welcome album featuring Billy Butterfield and his orchestra in 1946. featuring Billy Butterfield's orchestra on Hindsight HSR 173. Hindsight HSR 173. Mr. B not only blows his own trumpet on this album, he sings too! Exclamation point. Nice album, as well as the other Hindsights that we've played. For our play-out this week, here's one of the 2 instrumental tracks on that King Sisters LP. It's Frank DeVol playing something called What's the Use? Just before you hear what's left of it, may I remind you, just before I go, that next Thursday is the last Thursday of Big Band Sounds. As of Monday, October the 4th, we revert to our former pattern. We have dance band days from 7:30 to 8, and then after the news at 8:02 to 8:45, it's Big Band Sounds. It's going to be called the Big Band Era for some reason, but don't worry about that. It's the same mixture, except that on that first program on October the 4th, we shall be doing something special. In fact, linking the dance band days and the Big Band Sound, as you will hear. Join me for next Thursday, though, and before that, if you like, on Sunday for Sounds Easy. That's a special one, too. Till then, from me, Alan Dell, good night to you. Bye-bye.
And our thanks to Alan Dell for the Big Band Sound. Look forward to your company at the same time again next week, Alan. And indeed, I look forward to the new format. Great stuff.